So, Formula One games are serious business.
I should think so.
And there's sort of been a dearth of good Formula One games, and the real Formula One enthusiasts haven't really had anything to play since Grand Prix 4, which is from 2002.
True.
Now the license is in the hands of Codemasters, and their racing pedigree is pretty good.
Definitely, I absolutely loved Third, of course, but even more so Grid. And when I heard that they actually got the official license, I was probably among the most happy gamers in the world. I was literally just dancing around and doing all sorts of shit. And the happiness really hasn't slowed down since I received the review code of the game.
But is it good?
It's really good, and first and foremost, it's really good because it's a Formula One game. It's not a Gran Turismo wannabe, Forza wannabe, anything else than a Formula One game. And Codemasters have taken the job really serious, and that means that you have really good car physics, which is of course just so important. You have probably the best experience of speed in any racing game to date, which of course, I mean, you have also played probably racing games where you are supposed to drive 300 kilometers an hour, and it feels like you're running or something. Whereas in this game, especially when you go into the cockpit from the driver's perspective, it just feels absolutely insane. I mean, the acceleration just from 0 to 100 is just like you sit in a rocket. And when the first corner comes and you have to brake down, just the amount of speed you are able to take out of the car in probably a few meters or so is just something that you really have to turn your head around to. And that also, of course, it gives it a vastly different experience from other car games, which it should, because it's Formula One.
They put a lot of effort into not just making the game about, not just making it a driving game, but making it a game about being a Formula One driver.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's just because I'm really serious about games reviewing, but I've never been able to see their Codemasters, that is, their experience as more than a fancy menu system. Because if you played Grid or Third, of course, Third 2 really did it good, but it still feels like, you have your trailer, you have your maps, and in this game you have a manager with a really weird accent or something. And I mean, it's a cool way to draw you into the game instead of just having the menus, but then again it slows down the time it takes for you to get to the proper race, which can get frustrating in the long run. And for instance, in this game, in F1 2010, you have the opportunity to be interviewed by the press, which is really cool after the race. But when it's just the same 14 questions that you're being answered, that you're being asked by the same two reporters, who stands at the exact same point outside your van every time after every race, you just sit there and go, why is this even included in the game? And it feeds into a moral system that really doesn't put out anything, so you sit there and go, oh, okay, that's kind of strange.
But the racing is as it should be.
The racing is really good.
Physics are good, weather is good.
Exactly. Everything is there, and it should be said that if you're a Formula One fan, if you've been watching for a couple of years on TV, you should start the game out on at least hard, which is, I believe, the second hardest difficulty of the game. Because what happens is that, of course, it gets harder to actually manage the car, which is just a job in itself. You have to manage gears, pretty much everything. You have to call in your pit mechanics and everything. But the really cool thing about it is that the AI gets so much better. And the other drivers, I don't know if this is the proper way to describe it, but they get really frisky. Like they go for menus where you just sit there and go, you can't do that. I was almost into the corner and you actually cut me off and I had to go out into the grass. And on hard difficulty as well, the entire rule set will also be added to the game. So if you just play it like any other racing game where you just crash into other cars and force them out and stuff like that, you will actually get punished, which is part of the whole F1 experience.
So, lots of praise so far.
Yeah.
Any negatives?
There is first and foremost the presentation. I mean, the graphics of the game. This is Codemasters, and this is their eco engine, which is just insanely good, and they really know their stuff. But the presentation lacks the TV presentation. For instance, the speedometer and just the rankings and everything.
All the on-screen graphics.
All the on-screen graphics doesn't use the TV presentation that you're used to, which is so weird. I mean, I get that the whole thing is that you're supposed to be the driver and therefore doesn't see like that. But as a games player, I want what I see on TV while still getting the whole experience of me being the driver. So that's really lacking. Also, it should be said, and I mean, this seems so basic when I'm telling you this, but I think it will kind of confuse some people who have been playing the aforementioned games like Gran Turismo and Forza, because this isn't necessarily a game for them just because they like cars. This is a Formula 1 game. Right. And that means that if you want to play it at the hardest difficulty, you need to drive the whole, for instance, 56 laps, which takes a couple of hours. And the higher you put the difficulty, the less flashbacks, where you can actually rewind time and you get. And that turns into a really cool strategic element of the game, because if I'm driving 56 laps and I suddenly get, I don't know, make a mistake or my car breaks down or something, I really want to have those flashbacks so that the last 2 hours of gameplay hasn't been for nothing. So you really have to save them, and just on the harder difficulty, just experiencing the start where all 22 cars are on the grid and they all want to be first in the first corner is so intense. But you have to put that in front of you and really think about it if that is for you. Of course, you can also play it on easier difficulties, but that's not nearly as fun.
So, just to summarize, will this game leave the die-hard Formula 1 fans satisfied?
Well, the people who have been playing GP4 so far will probably just continue playing that game because, you know, it's Jeff Raymond and he's the only one who can produce a proper F1 car apparently. But I think as a Formula 1 fan and maybe even taking into account what could be expected from two and a half years of development, that this is an extremely good game. There's still room for improvement, which of course this being like the optimal franchise, they would probably do. So there's still parts I expect for maybe next year's installment, but this is really, really enjoyable and it's a really good Formula 1 game.